I was thinking before Brother Jeff got up, when my mom sang that song, He Still Speaks, I had actually wrote down, are we listening, as a question afterwards. Because throughout the days, the Lord's going to speak, whether we're listening or we're ready or not. He's still going to continue to speak. And I thought that was important. It just kind of stuck out to me as my mom sang that song, because if we're not listening, He can't show us the way. And that's the most important thing in the life. As Mike was talking about, we have a choice. And as it says in John 3:16, whosoever will, He gives us a choice no matter what we want to do. And if we don't continue to listen as we walk through the earth, we're going to end up making the wrong choice. We're going to end up going down the wrong path, finding things, and this world can creep in a matter of seconds. It's sad to see, as my daughter, she's in fifth grade, to see what she has to go through already. It was there probably whenever I was there in fifth grade, but it almost seems like it's gotten escalated. With the phones and everything else and technology, it's always around. Destruction is there now. We didn't have all that back in the day, and so now that these kids in fifth grade, Ellie's only 11, and they're carrying cell phones around, and it's all at their disposal. No matter what time it is, they could always get on it, and it's sad to see, what she has to go through. But if she continues to listen, if I can guide her, if I could show her the way, that's the true path that she's got to understand. And my son, I tell my mom sometimes when Daniel's over at the house, I stay every night. I'll make sure I lay down with him for a couple minutes, and we say a little prayer, and we sing this little song to him every night. And so some nights he says a prayer and he asks the Lord for the Holy Ghost. And that touches me, because he's only 7 and he doesn't understand everything yet, but it's good to see that he's willing to he sees something. He's willing to watch. He sees something in church, and it's down in his heart, and he's a very little emotional little boy, but he's sensitive. And if the Lord can use that, the Lord can open him up and show him more if he's willing to kind of be that vessel. And I thought it's so important that we listen as we grow with the Lord. And I was I guess it was back in August. We had a road trip all the way to Buffalo. It was my first time flying. I never flown in my life. I'm 36, and so it was kind of scary for myself. I've never flown before, and so it was I got to experience everything in travel, delays and everything, and we finally made it to Buffalo, and they encouraged us while we were there to make accountability partners. We had to set 3 goals that seemed to be smart, and they had an acronym for them. And so I came up with one of my goals to read every day for work. I never read. I don't like reading. It's not something I enjoy. But I was like, if I could read 5 minutes every day or 5 pages every day, that can't be too hard, right? But it is when you don't read. 5 pages seems like 20 or 30 pages. Well, I picked up my book, and when I started reading the 5 pages, it was horrible. I hated it. This is something I just didn't want to do. But as I continued to read more and more, I began to like it. The book that I was reading was a book about creating habits, about trying to find small habits throughout the day, and you build upon it. Well, as the year went by, it was September, kind of, and I had read 4 books by the end of the year. And so I was pretty proud of myself, but then I almost felt guilty because I had never picked up the Bible. And so I almost felt convicted at the end of the year because I was reading books for work, but I hadn't read the Bible all the way through, and I'm 36. And so at the beginning of the year, I decided that I was going to set down the books for work, that it was time to get rid of the books for work, that if I read this book, if I read the Bible, and I listened to what he had to say, and I learned about what he had to say, then everything else would come to play. And so I had been talking to some of the guys in Godfrey, and they let me join one of their Bible plans. And it's not like we talk or anything, but it's still an accountability because there's 12 or 15 people on there. And you could kind of see if you read it because there's a checkbox by your name if you did or not. So if you were paying attention, you could see that, hey, Matt didn't read his Bible today. And so I had started reading it January 1, and I hadn't stopped. And so it's a chronological order in the Bible, and I don't understand half of what I'm reading, but it's still reading it. And it's still one of those things that I'm trying to listen, I'm trying to work, I'm trying to make myself available to understand what he wants to do, because I have 2 kids I have to raise. I have to show them, and if I don't know how to show them, then they're not going to know where to go. And so that's what's so important about it, is just trying to learn and trying to listen to that, like Jeff was saying, it's not sometimes an audible voice, but knowing what to do and where to go and how to do it. If we aren't listening, we're not going to know those directions. We're not going to understand what to do. And, as he continues to work and he continues to go, whether we listen or we don't, he's still going to continue to be my God, my Savior. And those people that don't listen and have listened, shame on them, because the thing is they know better. They know where they should be, but they choose not to be. And there's nothing in this life that we're going to go through, whether it's with or without the Lord, that it's not going to be hard. It's going to rain on the just and the unjust, and we have to be ready. And that's the thing with the Lord. He has that. We have that extra stability that we can reach out, that we can call on His name and ask for help, no matter when, no matter where we're at, no matter what time it is. He's always listening to us. And I want to make sure I could understand and still know that I'm glad I know His voice. And my parents have always raised me in church. I've never been out of church my whole life. I've always been in it. And there's probably things I'm not proud of, but majority of my life, I've always known which way to go. I've never strayed too far to the wrong side because I knew that wasn't the way to go. I've watched so many people in my life from Mount Carmel that aren't there anymore. We would go there every once in a while. 1 or 2 years we had went, and all those people, I'm like, where'd they at? Where'd they go? And it's sad to see that that my generation is already half gone. And that generation that's already half gone means those kids could almost be gone too, that they're raising. And Brother Jeff always says we're one generation away from, being kind of distinct from the church of what we know. And it's sad to see that, because I know that they had a vision that day. That day they went to Mount Carmel, the youth meetings that they were in, at one time we all had a vision and we walked to a different path. We're on a different path, and that path is just destruction. And so I'm thankful to be here. I just want to continue to listen and lean out for Him and understand what He wants me to do. I want to make sure that I'm still available and make myself available when I want. I know it's really hard, sometimes to step out. It's not easy. It's probably the first time I actually stood at a pulpit, actually. That I think about it. My brother told me to come up here, and I was like, I'd rather sit out there, right? That's just my comfort. And I was thinking about a couple things whenever we were with all this listening and making myself available. And Brother Jeff had been talking about having our potential. Like, what are we there for? Who are we? What are we supposed to do? And I want to be willing. Whatever the Lord wants us to do, I want to be willing to do it. And I was thinking about Moses. Whenever the God called on him, he didn't want to speak. He didn't want to do what the Lord wanted him to do. But look how God used him. He wasn't equipped. He didn't know anything what he should do, but the Lord was able to use him in remarkable ways, and that's what sometimes I think about. Sometimes we think about, well, we're not worthy, but none of the men in the Bible were worthy. None of them were, like superheroes, right? There's all these superheroes for kids and stuff like that, but these men were just men. And there was nothing about them that was special besides the fact that they made themselves available. They were willing. They had faith. I would love to be able to say that if Jesus walked by right now, that I could drop my net and walk with him. We know how hard that would be. That's a hard task. But those men just dropped their net and forgot everything and walked with Jesus. And wouldn't it be wonderful if we could just drop our nets and walk with him, forget everything in this life, forget everything that we have going on, and just be able to walk with him. And so I thank you, and I just want to continue to listen to him.